Today is the day. It's finally time to take down my 125 gallon vivarium. For those of you who've been with my channel for a little while, you very well know this vivarium. It served as a background in at least 95% of my videos. It's always just been in the back, and a lot of you guys wanted to know more about it. However, I never really talked about it that much for the same reason really that I'm taking it apart. It's just the way that the glass is. I haven't really been able to film adequately, take pictures, anything like that, and I'll explain more about that in a little bit. Anyways, this is just a standard 125 gallon aquarium that I transformed into a vivarium, and I actually kept freshwater fish in it for many years after I resealed it. Then it got to the point where I eventually got rid of my fish and I transformed it into this vivarium, and it's been set up like this for going on about 8 years. Considering the age of this vivarium, it really allowed me to just experiment with different plants, different animals, all kinds of stuff to really just dial in on what works for me with vivariums, what I like to do. So I really like it in that respect. However, it's all scratched up, it's all hazy, different things like that, and it could be repaired to some degree, but it can't really be done while it's set up as a vivarium. And I also think it's time for a change. You know, I obviously really enjoy this setup, but I'm not enjoying it as much as I probably should. And the reason I say that is because it's a showpiece vivarium. You're supposed to look in it and enjoy it, all of that stuff. But I can't really do that because of the glass. And you might be saying, yeah, well, the vivarium's condensated. You could just wipe it off to see. Well, it's not like that. I actually have to spray down the glass, and the glass has to be wet for you to see in there. The only thing is that will last for about 5 to 10 minutes, and then it will fog up again. And it's just not good for me to enjoy this. It's also not conducive for videos or photos, any of that sort of thing. So honestly, you guys also aren't enjoying this as much as I would like you to, because I'm not sharing it as much because of the glass. As I mentioned earlier, this vivarium is about 8 years old, so it's really been around for a while, but some of the plants actually predate this vivarium. I have some Anubias over here that I had in my original fish tank, so it was like the first fish tank I ever had. And I was about 14 at the time, so that was 11 years ago or so. So it's kind of interesting because that plant has pretty much, it's been through a greater portion of my hobby, really. And it might be the oldest plant in my collection in general. You might be wondering, how do I care for this thing? And it's actually really simple. I spray it down probably 3 times a week, so about every other day. I used to do it every day, but it just seemed excessive, and the plants, they really didn't mind. The fire-bellied toads don't mind, and it stays pretty humid. Also, because I don't have circulation in this, I did at one point have a fan in here that passively circulated the air, but the fan broke, and I didn't really see any differences after the fan broke, so it's been like that for about 4 years now at least, without any circulation, and it honestly doesn't seem to have any problems with it. I also have a humidifier down underneath that I use to impress people. What I mean by that is I'm not using it on a day-to-day, it's not necessary, and it's really just for aesthetic reasons. So if I'm showing it in a video, or if people come over my house and they want to see my tank, I'll turn on the humidifier because it makes it look really cool, but it's not necessary to use just because the humidity stays pretty consistent in here. You may be wondering what goes into feeding a setup like this, and it's really quite simple. I just throw in about 4 dozen crickets in here once a week, and I'll dust them when I initially throw them in. The fire-bellied toads will eat them, and then by the time they all get eaten, they're probably not dusted anymore. But the thing is that this setup is so lush, the fire-bellied toads are not going to eat all of the crickets right away. There's so many hiding places for them, and quite honestly, some crickets might live out their entire life in here. They might breed, whatever, and they're just living their life out in here, and the toads never even find them just because it's so dense. Another thing worth talking about is the lighting. I originally had fluorescent T5 bulbs on here, and they did really well for years, but I got sick of the temperature of the lights after a while, and I also wanted to use those fixtures for other enclosures, so I built this thing. And I'll link you up to the video to show you how I built this, but essentially all that it is a wooden frame that sits up on top of the tank here, and it has 5 fluorescent bulbs, and they're just your standard EcoSmart bulbs. They do really well, grow the plants quite nicely. There's not any signs of deficiencies or anything like that. So I think these lights work really well, and I use them on a lot of my setups, and I've shown you guys stuff about that in the past. That's really all that I could think to discuss with the tank in its current situation. As we move forward with this, what I'm going to do is take all of the fire belly toads out first. I'm going to put them in an individual enclosure because I don't want them going into the new vivarium that's going to replace this one. And then as we go through this, I'll kind of tell you guys more about it. I'm not gonna lie, I'm getting kind of sad right now. Honestly, it's exciting to do something new, but as I start to take this apart here, I'm like, oh man, I almost don't want to do it. I just feel sad, like seeing all this Ficus pumila. It's just, I don't know, it's sad to see it go. This vivarium features the Great Stuff expanding foam background. Now, a lot of people have beef with this background for good reason. It has its downsides, but it's honestly one of my favorite backgrounds. I really like how it looks. It has a lot of versatility to it. The thing is that in this instance, I didn't carve the foam before I put on the silicone. I literally just sprayed the foam, let it cure, put on the silicone, and then dropped the cocoa fiber on it. So I had the tank sitting on its side, and then I dropped all the cocoa fiber on it, and as you can see, it's mostly fallen off. Now since then, I've done this background many more times, and I've learned that it's better to actually carve the foam so that it looks like a sponge before you put on the silicone, and then actually press the cocoa fiber. And I use more than just cocoa fiber nowadays, but you actually press it into the silicone so that kind of becomes a part of it. It will last a much longer time than it will just doing it like this. Something that I noticed right here that is pretty cool is this is all moss spores actually growing onto the Great Stuff background. Now, I wonder over time if this would have actually turned into just a moss background. I think what I'll do is cut out this little section, or maybe I'll even just cut out the entire background and put it in a different tank or something and just see if this moss will actually grow and cover the entire background, because that would be pretty interesting. So I think what I'm going to do from here is attempt to remove this ficus. So what started out as a single cutting, in about 8 years, this is what it's turned into. Now, I trim the thing about every month, every other month or so, and this thing, it's just a monster of a plant. So understand that, yeah, Ficus puma, it's a great vivarium plant. After a few years, you're gonna end up with something like this. This is really quite barren without any of that ficus, and I'm kind of working against the clock here because these plants don't like transitioning into a drier climate because they're used to being really humid. And I actually was only able to find 2 of the fire-bellied toads, so I gotta take this apart and move these plants as fast as I can. At this point, the vivarium is just a shadow of its former self. We have some substrate in here, the false bottom, and the background, of course. And I'm just going to take out everything, salvage what I can, and toss the rest. Since this substrate is really established, it's been around for quite a while, I actually want to use it in my new vivarium. So I'm going to take as much as I can out of here and put it into the new batch. Here it is, the 125 completely cleaned out and ready for another project. As you saw, I resealed it, and I also did the best I could to clean the glass with some white vinegar and Barkeeper's Friend. Unfortunately, the hard water is actually etched into the glass, so there's not really that much I can do to remove it. Regardless, Whodini's definitely still going in this aquarium, but I had something really elaborate planned originally. I don't think I'm going to do that simply because of the etching. I don't want to take the time and money to make something really crazy in here, but we're not actually able to see in here and enjoy it like I would like us to. So long term, he's probably not going to stay in here. I'll hook him up with something else. I have this rule where I don't downgrade any of my animals' tank sizes, so if they've been in something larger, they're not going to get downgraded. So no doubt I'm going to hook him up with something at least this size, maybe larger. We'll see what I have planned in the future for that. But really long term with this aquarium, the only thing it's suitable for is actually an aquarium, because when it's filled up with water, you don't notice the etching that much. You'll see the scratches and stuff, but I have some things I could do to fix those at least. So pretty much probably I'll put the native fish in here, or maybe the fish that are in the 150 will go in here, and once we get my own place, we'll do something different with the 150 because I have some interesting ideas for that. I'll stop there though because I'm getting ahead of myself and I'm totally exhausted. I had to move all of the contents of this vivarium into that other one, and I've been setting it up for about the past week, and it's not really going as planned. I'm having some troubleshooting issues, stuff like that, and it's pretty much expected with this type of thing, and no project ever goes as planned. I mean, I don't think any project I've ever tried has ever went as planned, and that's totally fine. You work around what's going wrong. Maybe it turns out better. A lot of the time it does turn out better, but I'm having some issues with that one right now. We'll talk about that in a different video. And yeah, so I'm calling it quits here. I'll see you guys next time. If you enjoyed the video, let me know what you thought about it, and long term, what would you want to see me do with this aquarium? Like I said, Whodini's definitely going into it short term, maybe for a few months, a year at most, but after that, I definitely kind of want to do some kind of aquarium in here because that's really all it's good for, unless I would do something like a grow out plant tank or something along those lines where it's not intended to be a showpiece, it's just a functional piece. Anyways, that's enough. I gotta get going. I'll see you guys next time, and peace.